If you're an adult guitarist trying to learn jazz while fitting it into your busy schedule and you're just not making any headway, it's not about lack of talent or effort. You just need a better approach. There are some common mistakes that guitarists make when learning jazz. I know because I made them. Looking back, avoiding them would have saved me years of spinning my wheels. Today, I'll show you how to fix them so that you can start making real progress right now. I'm Dr. George, making jazz simple so that you can play more and think less. None of these 5 mistakes are your fault. They're just the way most of us were taught to go about jazz, and they waste the little practice time you have. Now, they come in 3 groups. The first 2 are about your approach, the next 2 are about your practice, and the last one is the one nobody talks about, and it's the one that kept me stuck the longest. We'll go through all 5, and I'll show you exactly what to do about them. Let's dig in. The first mistake is just simply not knowing what you want the music to sound like. Now, you may think that you do know, but do you want it to sound like this? Or do you want it to sound like this? Or some other way. You see, the goal is to sound like you, not like somebody else. You can only be second best that way. Now, where are you going to get this? Well, you start out by listening. But you're not listening so that you can sound like somebody else. You're listening so that you can find out what it is you like. And you also want to start to hear more and more details. I hear a lot more now than I did when I first started. You'll listen to the big picture. How's this song put together? And then also listen in for the closer details, like how is it articulated and how are they using dynamics? Now, a lot of this will just show up in your playing automatically. But if you really want to make that big change, there's one thing you have to start doing, and that's singing. You want to sing the solos so that you get it into your ear and you know for sure that this is what you want. And you're going to find that when you first start singing, it probably doesn't really lock in the way you think it does. I know I did that a couple of times in a scat solo and was kind of embarrassed when I heard the recording back. So the solution for you is to sing a solo, record it, and then transcribe it. And that will show you what it is you hear. Now, you may find that you don't hear really sophisticated things like Phrygian dominant scales. It may even be just pentatonic. But what that means is that's what it would be authentic. Now, you can train your ear to hear more, but to start out, you want to be connecting your fingers in your ear and doing what your ear tells you to do. But that leads us to the next problem, which is using theory the wrong way. A lot of people think that the way to play jazz is to play the right notes on the right chord, and they use theory to do that. You have to learn a bunch of scales, arpeggios, and figure out how to land on chord tones. But you see, that's really the long way around, and it's also not very satisfying. As Bill Evans said, jazz really isn't an intellectual theorem, it's a feeling. It also leads to a lot of mistakes. When you're trying to play the right notes, sometimes you're going to play the wrong one. But what can you do about that? Well, if you use your ear instead of your brain, then there are no mistakes. You play a note. If it wasn't the note you intended, you do something to make it better. As Miles Davis said, it's not the note you play that's wrong, it's the one you play afterwards that makes it right or wrong. So the solution is to use theory the right way. First, you want to know your fundamentals. You need to know keys, you need to know how to spell a chord, and you need to know diatonic chords. But that's about it. And then I use it for the big picture to figure out what the key centers are. And then where it really comes into play is chord voicing. And chord voicings in jazz are not like traditional voicings where you're learning grip after grip after grip. And if you know your theory, you can find out that a chord like this could be 5 different chords, the same exact voicing. So this is where theory comes into play most, is when you're learning chord voicings. But the most important thing about theory is to leave it in the practice room. Don't bring it onto the stage. When it's time to play, it's time to use your ear. Okay, so let's talk about your practicing now. Now, I'm pretty sure that you've heard at least one person tell you that you need to be practicing 2 or 3 hours a day to be able to play jazz guitar. Well, that's fine if you're a kid or a pro, but you have a life. And so those expectations are just unrealistic, and they often lead people to just say, I can't do that and I don't have enough time. Well, but that's not true. You see, the real problem isn't the amount of time you spend, it's both the consistency and the quality of the time that you spend. If you can stay focused for 15 minutes each day, you're going to make progress. One solution that doesn't work is cramming. I used to do this. I wouldn't practice all during the week, and then on Saturday I'd practice 2 or 3 hours in the morning. But the problem with that is that it's really inefficient and ends up wasting a lot of time. You can't stay focused for 2 to 3 hours, so there's going to be breaks in there. You're going to play something, and then you're going to noodle on something else. A kid walks in, you got to talk to them. So there's all sorts of things that get in the way, and so that 2 to 3 hours ends up not really being 2 to 3 hours. It's a lot more effective if you can just do 15 minutes a day. Now, one thing that's really important to understand is what practice really is, and that's working on something that you already know and trying to make it sound better. It's not learning something new, and it's not just playing. Now, those are both valuable things to do, but those aren't part of your practice sessions. Those are something that you can do in those 2-hour sessions if you've got the time. What I suggest you do is what I call the 5-minute solution. You need to have a guitar and handy wherever you happen to hang out most. And so let's say you're in the living room watching TV. You want to have a guitar that you can just grab and pick up and play for 5 minutes. Now, it could be, cheap acoustic if you want, or it doesn't have to be your best guitar. And what you're going to do is that, during a commercial break or something, you're going to practice on one very small thing. And that would be maybe a scale, something like this. So a bebop scale. Okay? Now, if you play that scale over and over again without letting anybody distract you for 5 minutes, you're going to start to play that a whole lot better. And if you do that for 3 or 4 days, and you'll increase the speed, and by the end of the week, you'll have that really well under your fingers, and you've made some progress. You can do that with anything that's giving you a problem. So if you're working on a song and there's a section like, and take the A train, maybe you're struggling with that part. So you do that for 5 minutes, and it might take a few days, but you work on that part, and you don't spend a lot of time working on the easy parts. Now, if you do this for maybe 3 times a day, well, you're at 15 minutes, and you're basically accomplishing things that are really going to show up in your playing. Now, we've talked about how to practice, but now you should also think about what to practice. There's so many things that you can do. You have to pick and choose. And you have to be really careful not to be practicing things that just aren't that important. So, for example, playing all your scales in 12 keys. Well, that's really nice, but most of our songs are going to be in 3 or 4 different keys. And so why are we going to spend equal time on the key of G flat and the key of B flat? Don't need to do that. We also don't need to spend a lot of time on endless finger exercises. I had one that that a teacher showed me that I did. And to this day, I've never used it in anything. So what was the point? Yeah, it's a nice little party trick, but that's about it. Okay, so you don't want to waste your time doing things that aren't going to show up in your playing. And that includes, cool, useless things that you can find in books and YouTube. How many times have you learned a lick and never figured out how to put it into a solo? See, our goal here is to play music. So play music, learn songs. But there are things that you can go wrong with that too. One of the most common is that you start playing songs that are too hard. One of the first songs they asked me to play at Berkeley was All the Things You Are. And to be honest, that was way too hard of a tune for me at the time. Other tunes like Girl from Ipanema or Have You Met Miss Jones are difficult songs. But there are plenty of easy tunes like Autumn Leaves, Fly Me to the Moon, Alice in Wonderland, blues. So what you want to be doing is focusing on tunes that are within your wheelhouse and not tunes that are going to force you to be thinking about this scale and this chord. The other thing that happens with songs is that you never spend enough time on one song. As Bill Evans told us, you should spend 24 hours on one tune rather than 1 hour on 24 tunes. And so when you decide to add a tune to your repertoire, really dig into it. Spend time with it. I encourage you to spend as much as a month on really adding a tune. Now, that doesn't mean you won't play any other tunes while you're there, but the tune that you're focusing on when you're talking about practicing, that's the tune you're going to be working on until you've really got it down. And if you don't have it memorized, if you can't play it with just pick up the guitar and play it, you don't know the tune yet. So the thing that you really want to be doing is learn songs and then only do the things that will help you play that song better. That means you're going to practice the 1 or 2 keys that works with that. So you don't have to practice a dozen scales, you're practicing 1 or maybe 2. And the same with the chords. Practice the chords that go along with it and practice soloing on it and then solve the problems of that song. There's always going to be probably 20% of that song that's going to take a little extra effort. There's where that 5-minute solution comes in. This last one was probably what slowed me down the most. See, I'm largely self-taught on the guitar. I took some lessons when I was a kid, and I had some lessons at Berkeley, but most of that was just lots of information. I even spent 3 years at Johnny Smith's store, and he showed me lots of things, but he never really listened to me play. And that's what was missing. I lacked quality feedback that would have really helped my playing. It would have been great to have a coach to get me over the plateaus. It would have saved me a lot of time. Now, one thing you can do is record yourself, but there are things you don't hear yet and things you don't know yet. So you need to find some way to get some feedback. Now, the first 4 mistakes we talked about, you can start fixing on your own, but this last one, you really can't. And that's the one thing a book or a YouTube video can't give you. You need someone who's already been where you are, who can listen to you play and tell you the one thing to work on next. That's exactly what I do in Jumpstart Jazz Guitar. You get detailed video feedback directly from me. This is where the other 4 mistakes actually get solved. We get your ears in charge instead of your head. We build the connection between your hand and your ear so that your playing sounds the way you want it to. And we set up a practice routine that's built for busy adults like you so that the limited time you have finally starts to count. Now, if you've been stuck for a while and you're tired of guessing on your own, that's why I offer a free lesson. I listen to you play and show you exactly what to work on next. I've been doing this with students for over 30 years. I only take a few students at a time, so book your call today. The link is down below.